everyone, my name's Danielle and welcome to another episode of Board Game Bakes. This week we're going to feature Tenpenny Parks, which is produced by Thunderworks Games. In the game, you start with a blank field with just some trees and the dream of having the best amusement park. So you take turns buying attractions, clearing trees, getting concessions, and all sorts of things, so at the end of the game you have the most successful amusement park. You have this fun carousel that can spin around and has price modifiers for the various attractions. We're going to recreate that as a cake, and I was trying to think of what flavors I associate with a fair, and one that seemed perfect for this time of year is caramel apples. So we're going to make a caramel apple cake, and it's going to be perfect for fall and for our amusement park theme. So let's get started. Caramel apples, get your caramel apples. Let's try to recreate this classic fair treat as a cake. To begin, make your favorite yellow cake. I'm a fan of Duncan Hines mixes. You could always make substitutions to the cake mixes to make them taste even better and be sturdier. This is a double batch of the cake mix, but instead of using 2 cups of water, I used 1 cup of water and 1 cup of milk so the cake is sturdier and easier to carve. Divide the batter and pour it into 1 9-inch pan and 4 6-inch pans that have been lined with parchment paper, sprayed and dusted with flour. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 20 minutes, and you'll have to check it more because they're different sizes. Let them cool completely before decorating, or you can freeze them until you're ready to put everything together. Can you believe this is my first time making caramel sauce? Not for the show, like ever. And surprisingly, it wasn't as hard as I thought. To begin, add 1 cup of granulated sugar, and you're going to add this a quarter at a time while it's over medium heat. You can stir occasionally, which is what I missed at first, but once the sugar starts to melt, you can add the next quarter of a cup. While you're doing this, the sugar should darken to a nice amber color. Once all the sugar is dissolved and darkened to your desired color, turn off the heat. Add in 6 tablespoons of butter, 1 tablespoon at a time, and then 1/3 of a cup heavy cream, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt if desired. I found the caramel sauces are really intimidating, but this was easier than I thought. So prepare for more caramel, people. It'll look very loose when you're done. Let it cool a bit in the fridge before using. If you store in the fridge like I did, let it sit on the counter a bit before trying to put into your icing or drizzle on your cake. Time to amplify the caramel flavor by making part of a tasty frosting. Cream 2 cups or 4 sticks of softened unsalted butter in a mixer on medium speed until it's fluffy. Mix in 1/3 cup of that delicious caramel sauce you just made and 1 teaspoon vanilla extract. Once that's all incorporated, you're going to add in 6 cups of powdered sugar. You could add a tablespoon of heavy cream or half and half while adding the sugar to make it easier to mix. Let it whip on medium speed for 1 to 2 minutes to get it to a nice fluffy consistency. I like the word fluffy. Okay, where's the apple? That's what I'd be asking at this point. So let's find that apple. Let's make the apple filling. I made 1.5 batch recipe, which was way more than I need. A single batch is definitely okay, and probably even more than you need. But seen here, combine 6 cups of tart apples that have been peeled, cored, and cut into about 1 centimeter pieces. Put in a large pan with 4.5 tablespoons of butter, 1.5 cups light brown sugar, 3 teaspoons ground cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Cook over medium-high heat, stirring occasionally until the mixture starts to bubble. At this point, add in a mixture of 3 tablespoons cornstarch and 3 tablespoons of water that has been mixed together, and since you've combined the cornstarch with the water, it's going to be easier to mix it in evenly. Reduce the heat and let that simmer for 5 to 10 minutes. You want the apples cooked, but not overcooked, otherwise they'll turn into applesauce. You don't want that. The cornstarch will help it thicken, so this way it doesn't ooze out of the cake. Let it cool in the fridge until you're ready to use it. Hey everyone, while you're here, make sure you hit subscribe for new videos every Tuesday. Thanks! This cake has 3 levels, so let's start at the bottom. Turn the top of your 9-inch cake to make it flat, and then divide in half horizontally. Use a little icing to stick it onto the cardboard sheet, and put a thin layer of icing on the top of your first layer of cake. Pipe a thick border of frosting around the circle, and this will contain our tasty filling. Scoop out some of the apple filling, trying to get more of the apples than the sauce. Once it's all spread out, put a thin drizzle of caramel over your apples, and then put your second piece of cake on top. Let this sit in the fridge for a minute or 2 to harden, then cover your cake in frosting. I chose to do 1 layer of frosting instead of a crumb coat and then another coat, since there's already a lot of icing and it's a thin cake. Let it set in the fridge while you roll out some light yellow fondant to 1/8 of an inch thickness. Roll it up onto your rolling pin and then drape it over the cake. You can use some water to help it stick if the icing is no longer tacky, but for mine it looks like it's okay. Cut off any excess fondant so that it doesn't pull down and rip your fondant. Smooth down the top and the sides and trim off any excess, and I think that's maybe one of my best times doing fondant so far. Put it back in the fridge to harden before decorating it. While it's hardening, make the number markers that let you know what price adjustments need to be made. Cut out circles of fondant that's an 1/8 inch thick, and use edible markers to write the numbers on them. You need two $0, a -1, a -2, +1, and +2. I attempted to draw the cool worker guide on the actual piece, and it did not go well at this size. Nope. So numbers it is. Use edible paint to paint around the border of the circle with the corresponding color to its location on the board. Back to the big cake. Use an edible marker to draw lines dividing the cake into 12 sections. This is definitely a time where having the piece in front of you helps. Every other section has colored diagonals on it. Work each of the 3 colors separately, starting with the outline of the circle on the cake, and then fill in the little sections. You need to have red, green, and gray. You may need to let it sit in the fridge between the colors so that it doesn't get too sweaty or too soft. Wait until you've assembled your final cake before putting your numbers on. Time for the main event, the actual part you ride on the carousel. Trim off the dome of 2 6-inch cakes so this way you have a flat top. So that our carousel isn't too tall, divide one layer in half horizontally and only use a half of the cake as a second layer. Before you cut the cake, cut the sides so this way you have a cake the shape of a hexagon. Fill the cake like the large circle cake with the apples and caramel. Since it's a weird shape, this one definitely needs the crumb coat to try and get smooth. So do a thin layer of icing and then apply more once it's sat in the fridge for a little bit and is firm to the touch. Let's prep our ride. Roll out white fondant until it's 1/8 of an inch thick. Cut out sections that are 6 cm by 8 cm for the carousel divisions. There should be 6 because it's a hexagon. It's easier to let the pieces set out and dry a little bit before decorating, because if it's too wet then sometimes the paint and stuff could run. Line up the pieces of fondant and have each one corresponding to a side of the carousel. There's an amazing amount of detail and action on this carousel. I just picked a few details that popped out to me and focused on those. To begin, use an edible marker to outline the shapes that you want on each side of your cake. Then color the background, for all 6 of them, a golden yellow color. Let that dry. Then use some orange to create a border on the top and a section for your bunting to go. Use dark brown to add some shades on the sides of the pieces. What do you gravitate towards when you ride a carousel? I like the ones that go up and down way more than the ones that stay stationary. Use paint to add little details to make the attractions, and then brown the bottom. Once I add the background details, it was easier to work on each piece separately to finish all the details on one piece. So you gotta add blue for the bunting, some brown on the bottom, and all the different colors on the attractions like the trains and the horses and even a rocket ship. There's a lot on this carousel. When you're happy with the paint, let it dry, and once that's done you can add all the final details with edible marker. Let these pieces sit until we're ready to put the cake all together. Time for our top layer cake, which is the carousel roof. Use a little frosting to attach a trimmed 6-inch cake to your cardboard, and instead of filling it with apples, just do a layer of frosting so this way it's easier to carve the cake. Use a serrated knife to angle the cake and create a sloped roof, knowing that it'll probably be a little bit more inclined than the actual game piece. Cover the cake with a crumb coat and then a final smooth coat of frosting. Now for the fun roof with a little overhang. Probably has a little bit more overhang than the actual piece, but why not? Now it looks even more like a carousel. Roll out yellow and red fondant to 1/8 of an inch thickness. Cut out pieces that are a little less than 1 centimeter wide on top, and it's going to widen up to 4 centimeters on the bottom with a little extra half circle to hang over the edge. I made an extra one so I had 7 of each, which I wound up needing. Set them to the side until you're ready to put all of the cake together, but you don't want these to sit too long because you want to fold over when it overhangs on the side. Let's bring our carousel to life. I could hear the music already. Put some bamboo or dowel rods in the bottom layer to give your cake some support. Place your middle hexagon layer on the cake. At this point, put the carousel pieces that you paid onto the cake. You'll probably need to put a very small amount of water on the back so this way they stick to the cake and don't fall. Don't be too alarmed if they don't meet up perfectly. Once you placed your roof cake on top, use a paintbrush to apply a thin splash of water on the roof cake. Apply alternating colors of the fondant strips you create around the cake. And you want to have the curved edge going over the side so it should go past the cardboard on your cake. As a final touch, create a thin cylinder of yellow and orange fondant. Twirl them together to get mixed colored rods. Cut them so they're about 6 centimeters high and put one in each of the corners of your hexagon. Roll out some black fondant and put it in the hole up top to create the illusion of empty space inside. Ta-da! You're ready for the carousel and amusement park. Get ready to eat some delicious cake and have some fun. Thanks for watching another episode of Board Game Bakes. I really enjoyed the carousel we recreated. Really has a cool effect when you're playing the game because it can make attractions that should be really expensive not too bad and vice versa. So I really enjoyed the dynamic that the carousel brings to the game. When you go to a carnival, what's your favorite thing? Unsurprisingly, I love all the food, but here I am. Keep playing games and keep them sweet. Bye!